Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas and you're watching Inside Tonight with Ashok Vyas. Today's show is very special and today happens to be the first in a series dedicated to interfaith. As you are aware, United Nations dedicated a whole week in February to interfaith. In fact, our whole life should be dedicated to interfaith because we need to live together, whatever be our faith, and we need to learn and appreciate, not just stay at learning and appreciating, but also get the sense of love that flows for one and all. And with that love and a sense of gratefulness for all these incredible guests that I have today, I first welcome to my right in this frame with folded hands, I welcome Imam Shansi Aliji.
Thank you.
And also Reverend Susanna Stefanachi Macomb. Did I say that correctly?
Close.
Perfect. And when you start moving forward in the show, you'll notice her robe also depicts a sense of interfaith with symbols of different faiths visible very prominently. And now to my left, I take this opportunity of folding my hands to welcome Guru Dileepji as well as Reverend Dr. T.K. Nakagaki. When you say the name again, T.K. Nakagaki. So and he is kind enough to say that you can call me TK. So before going back to TK, staying with this Nakagaki, when you say the name, you feel like you are singing. And singing is expression of joy in a way. Many times that joy which is inbuilt in us is restricted because of the kind of structure that limits our natural way of expressing ourselves. How faith helps as well as hinders this path of moving towards the expression of complete joy. I'll begin by requesting T.K. Nakagaki ji as to share something about your faith as well as when you felt the need to be active participant in the interfaith dialogue.
Well, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting that I'm going to be the first one to say something. My tradition is a Buddhism. And so Buddhism itself is started in India 2,500 years ago. And basically the teaching itself is interconnectedness. So because of that, we talk about everything, life is suffering, or in a way it's very difficult to go because life doesn't go the way you want because everything changes. And second is a no self, that because everything is connected to everything else. There's no such thing called self. And the third one is the parts of what do you call it, impermanence, because everything changes, right? No permanence. But then once you, and then the last thing is enlightenment. So we're talking about enlightenment once you realize what the interdependent means. Because interdependent, so meaning myself and others are inseparable in one way. And so knowing that is called wisdom. And then once you realize that wisdom, you can work with the compassion to the other people because you're not separate from others. And so that's one basic, Buddhist teaching. Of course, there are many, many teachings if I start talking about. So maybe that's just briefly that I wanted to share that. And then the way for me, interfaith itself is connected to what I have been doing in New York. After I came to New York, 1994, I've been organizing Hiroshima Nagasaki Peace Memorial. Actually, last 26 years. So every year in August, Hiroshima Day, I do organize that memorial. But then from the beginning, I decided to do the interfaith because each one wanted to have a peace, but yet we really, if you really wanted to have a peace, we need everyone. We try to make the peace together, not just the one particular religion or the group can do, but rather everybody together. So the interfaith represent for me is the kind of how we create the peace in the world.
Beautiful. We are inseparable, and how we create peace in the world. Everybody should be a part of this. When I say this, meaning the sense of peace cannot be isolated. We are all together, and that sense of togetherness, Reverend Susanna, Stefanachi, Macomb has.
Call me Reverend Susanna.
Reverend Susanna, thank you. So, Reverend Susanna, you have also written a wonderful book, and you have been active in on the track of interfaith, if I say. So, talk to us a little bit about your faith and when you felt need, and looks like you're so much at ease in the interfaith environment.
I am. Well, I've been in the interfaith community 24 years, but what happened, I was raised Catholic. I was, went to school with nuns. But at one point, in the way I was taught, you pray to God out there. And at one point I was seeking peace. And I started practicing meditation. And I looked to Hinduism and Buddhism and Sufism. And then I started studying different religions. And I was amazed and excited at the commonality. Like, of course there's the differences, but there's a common thread, And the other thing is, when you practice meditation by whatever means, when you have the mystical experience of God, and that's what made me become a minister, you know that God is one. You know that this is illusion. You see people as spirit, and my joy, I didn't even plan. People say, why did you come to ministry? I say it chose me, because I work with families, I've been doing, as I mentioned to you, Hindu, Muslims, they fall in love. The families are at each other's throats, so they come to me to navigate. Palestinian, Muslim, and Jewish. Christian, marrying, child of a Holocaust survivor. How do we navigate that? So the basis is always respect. Respect, respect, respect. Then there's knowledge, exposure. That eliminates so much fear, because so much of it is people fear the other, what they don't know. I have people who fear Islam, right? And it's like because they don't know Islam. They don't know that Islam means peace. Or they have these stereotypes of Hindus, it's because they have not studied, they have not been exposed. And then, of course, just meet each other, remember your humanity. Interfaith says we are all vessels of the divine. We come in different colors, we speak different languages, we practice different ways, but the light of God, the divine, is the same. And that's it. That's what interfaith is.
That's it. Light of God is the same. These words resonate with almost all of us. I say almost because if you want to differ, I want to respect that. And maybe you may have a different way of expressing it in your own way, with your own experience. And continuing with today's session on interfaith for harmony, Guru Dileepji, let us understand how you felt a sense of harmony can be enhanced or can be brought in day-to-day experience of people through interfaith. Talk to us about your journey briefly.
I grew up in Kerala. I like avial. Avial has all the vegetables, very tasty. So when I grew up, I used to mingle with all the religious people. Parents never bother, they'll send us to different families. We spend time with them. And I was so interested in different teachings. Maybe by birth I have little attraction towards philosophy. So I read all the different textbooks. And I was in music and dance. I know in Indian culture, especially in Hinduism, teach more about deeper spiritual aspect of art and music. When interact with the different leaders, I thought we are human beings, especially we have these teachings of Vasudeva Kudumbakam, the entire universe is a family. It's very hard to digest in the beginning. Then when I start traveling, is expanding myself. That's the most deeper philosophy in the Hinduism, especially when you read Adi Shankaracharya's teachings. I start inviting all the religious leaders to my events. We have yoga festivals. I bring all the religious leaders. We then allow them to speak about their culture. So I can learn. It's easy. I don't have to go to different schools. That's why I developed 35 years back. Now, when I see how I travel my own spirituality, I feel good. I think this is a way we can bring people together, have a divine, wonderful time on the earth.
Wonderful. So I hope I haven't interrupted you. So having a divine, uninterrupted time requires certain practice, certain understanding, and I am having that divine, uninterrupted time in this session where we are talking about interfaith for harmony. And now I have the opportunity of requesting Imam Shamsi Ali ji, who is, as his introduction says, there is a moderate Muslim scholar, and I was talking about this word moderate. I'll request him to say how he feels about this, and it is actually underlined moderate. So now there are many things about each one of them, including Imam Shamsi Ali ji, who's about to talk to you and me. But I want to mention that he's chairman of the Al Hikmah Mosque and the director of Jamaica Muslim Center in Jamaica, Queens, right here. He has also written a few books. One of the book had the preface written by President Clinton. So wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here along with distinguished panels. I feel honored given that title as a moderate, because for me, religion is a moderation. And the moment we take out religion from certain lines, the middle path line, I call it middle path lines, it's not religion anymore. So religion must be a middle path where we go through certain lines, and in the language of Islam it's called hudud, means there are some limits that you have to follow. You do not go to the extreme right or to the extreme left. Just follow as it is. Unfortunately, religion has been in many ways misunderstood and misused at the same time, and that's why people tend to divide religious people into radicals, extremes, and also moderate. So I'm honored to be considered among the moderate, because that's what's supposed to be. But coming back again to Islam, Islam means peace, certainly. Peace with God, peace with other human beings around you, peace with your neighbors. As Jesus told us, love your neighbors, love your God with all your heart and mind, and love your neighbors. That's what we have in Islam. Hindu people, it's about namaste, it's about salam, it's about peace. So I think every religion teaches the same thing. We may have different definitions, different words that we use, different terminologies, but the purpose is one, and it is about how to be having a good connection with the Almighty One, and having good connection with other people around us. So in my own experience in this path of interfaith, I have been here since I came to this country over 20 years back. I began this in 1997. I got connected with Christian friends around, but 9/11 changed everything else. I got connected with Jewish people that I never met, basically, earlier, and so I, as you mentioned in your introduction, I have co-authored a book with a Jewish rabbi called Sons of Abraham, and this is a very unique journey. Basically, I met this rabbi after the passing of Pope John II. I was invited by CBS television for an interview representing Islam, and he was invited to represent Judaism, and we met. So I extended my hand to shake hand, and he didn't want to shake hand with me. But I gave him my card, by the way. So 6 months later, he called me. He wanted to meet with me. So I say, the first one that I reminded him, why you don't want to shake hand with me at the studio? He said, because number one, there are two reasons. Number one, I was not sure that you are Muslims, because of that stereotypical minds of some that Muslims must be a Middle Eastern person, and I'm not. So, secondly, I did not past tense. I did not like Muslims. So I said, why you invited me now? He said, because I've seen you several times on televisions and you are a good ambassador for your faith. So we had a dialogue. He asked me a lot of questions, I asked him a lot of questions, and finally we said, we have to do something. We need to change the mindset of our community. So we organized the first summit of imams and rabbis in the United States. And believe me, when the Muslims and Jews meet, almost nothing else in their minds except Palestine and Israel. Looks nothing. There is no other subject but that. So finally, we intervened. He intervened to his friends, and I intervened to the Muslims. Say, two questions, very simple: you want fight to the end, or you want peace? And everybody wanted peace. So it means we have seen the promised land. The challenge right now, how to get into that promised land. So we then initiated a lot of programs. I don't have to mention, including writing a book, and I'm so happy and honored that President Bill Clinton wrote the foreword for that book.
Wonderful. When we are together, it's like one big family, as Guru Dileepji reminded us, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, whole world is a family, and that sense of family brings a sense of joy and celebration. And let us today talk about the way we can celebrate the differences that exist in terms of the way we aspire to be one with the ultimate, and looking at the inbuilt obstacles that we as humans have in terms of attaining to our divinity, or whichever way we refer to it. So let's talk about the basics from different faiths. Each one is confronting certain inner limitations. If you want to be something and you cannot be, then you are disappointed, and you have to overcome a sense of depression sometimes. So talk to us about the positive side which can be sustained through the practice of, let's say, Buddhism, beginning with you, TKG.
Okay, thank you. So for Buddhism, first of all, Buddhism is basically, to know yourself, to know the Dharma or the teaching or truth, basically. So it's nothing to do with other people in one way. I mean, primarily because you cannot live other people's life. You only can live your own life, and you really you understand yourself better and deeper, and otherwise you don't understand the others either. Because sometimes some people think it's the if you are really understand yourself and then you feel you're a very, very important person, then in the same way you should be able to understand others are also very important. But some people think the other way. Well, because I'm important, number one, so others are number two, number three. But the way that it should be is each one is a different capacity, so a different way of achieving the truth. The truth is different forms for the Buddhism, in Buddhist sense. And so, which means Buddha means awakened one, right? But there's no such thing as ism for Buddhism. It's kind of weird title, but then which means really be awakened to the truth and reality. That's all that Buddhism is about. And so, in a way, for me, when we talk about interfaith too, each tradition, each one has their own faith to be aware of. So, but through their faith, you understand the truth. And for me, that's the same thing. So that's why each one could be different, very different way, but yet they're looking for the truth of their life. So because of this truth, you can live. Because of this truth, you can die. And then because of this truth, you can find the meaning of life. So that's, for me, is each religions. And then as long as they do that, for me, it's the religious things. Sometimes people use political things, which I don't like much. But then the religion-wise, it's a learning process of who you are, what you are. And then that's the individual you can contribute to the society.
Wonderful. So if you know who you are, then you are happy because you know who you are. And I won't get into the depth of who you are because all these great scholars and practitioners and I would say enlightened beings know much more. Yet I want to say that we are not limited. That everywhere we hear from sages and scriptures, and to attain to that sense of limitlessness through contemplation, through meditation helps. But many times it doesn't help to the extent where you go to Reverend Susanna and you have two family members who want to be together and they come from different faiths. So that adds additional sense of stress for other family members, not those two who have decided to be together, but those who either are their parents or brothers or sisters, etc.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
how do you
I've
advise
worked
them?
with people who've been disowned by family. I've also navigated peace between family members. The first thing, I tell them God is bigger than religion. And I think most people, right, we can agree on that. God is bigger than religion. And then, in terms of a family, they have to understand that the children fell in love. They're not doing it against the parents. The parents think if they loved me, they would marry another Hindu. They would marry a Muslim. It doesn't happen that way. Love doesn't have boundaries. They fell in love. And sometimes they're in pain. They're torn between their parents, and the one they love. Then I try an education process because sometimes they fear, Islam believes this, so Islam believes death to the believers. Hinduism, they worship like 100 gods, but they don't, so teach them, and then they show them the beauty, the light of the religion. And then get to know, most important, what Guruji says, get to know each other as human beings. Not seeing him as a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist, a human being, a child of God. We're, created by God. And in Christianity, one of my favorite teachings in the Gospel of John is God is love and is loving one another that we know God. And I don't think it says, okay, if you're a Hindu, don't love them. Or if they're a Zoroastrian, don't love them. And I've also worked, oh my goodness, I had a Jain family who disowned her daughter for marrying a Greek Orthodox, but it wasn't because he was Greek Orthodox, because he ate meat. So he was defiling her. So, so I say, are you putting religion first? Or you're putting love first? That's kind of how I work.
So I know I won't get into
Yeah.
sort of very in-depth, minute questions, but he might, slightly lighter vein, but slightly sincerely, he might say, I put love for that animal first, because he was against the other family eating meat. That's what you said.
Right, exactly.
So you said you putting love first, and he said,
I said,
put
I
the love
asked
for
them,
the
I don't
animal."
tell them. I said, are you going to put love first, or love for your love first, or your religion first? And if you put religion first in your life, then I tell people, then you must marry someone of your own religion, right? But if you can put your relationship first and put love first and come to a commonality of that we worship one God, but in different ways, and we'll respect each other, then it'll work out.
Wonderful. So we want everything to work out in a way where we lead to harmony. Harmony is also related to beauty, a sense of symmetry, a sense of opening up to the creative process, which is coiled up within. And when I say coiled up, that term also reminds me of yoga or yogic expression. So, Guru Dileepji, when you work with different people, did you come across a situation where you felt that they cannot see eye to eye because of their inbuilt differences about perceiving each other, and how your understanding of yoga helps in that direction?
In the earlier time, there's not that many people from different faith coming to the yoga classes. So I put interfaith in yoga events and slowly attract them and have a nice meal together. That's the way I start. And we cook together, we eat and chat. And slowly they became friends. Then it's easy for me. I went to invite one of the bishop. He said, I'm not going to come to your events, all evil spirits are there. because of yoga. I said, that's fine, we'll handle the evil. You come and pray for us. After third time inviting him, he came. Oh, I'm tired of you. You're always coming to me and inviting. So something special about you. I want to come to your event. That made a change. And one of the bishops came to my annual event. And he said, I practice 26 asanas. Yoga is good for health. That's the first bishop in the world came to a yoga event. And once I met the head of the Jacobite church in India. I said, where are you from now? I am in vacation, came from New York. Oh, I used to live there. What do you do? I said, I teach yoga. That is good for health. It's a world head, patriarch. And when he said that, around 60 bishops in that room, they came to me after the meeting. Oh, can you come to our seminary, give a talk?
So Guru Dileepji, looking at the time that we have today, I'm afraid I'm interrupting you because I want to hear before we conclude today's session, and I also want to say that we'll have one more session with all these wonderful luminaries from their own in their own right. And Imam Sahib, when you come across people who you feel misunderstand you, how do you deal with that?
I think first it reminds me about the one human family. In this regard, the Holy Quran reminds us that when God says, "O mankind, we created you from a male and a female, and we made you into many nations and tribes so that you get to know one another." In other words, that originally, essentially, fundamentally, we came from the same family. But then God doesn't want us to be unified in just one form. There's not uniformity. God wants us in diversity in life because diversity is beautiful and God wants beauty in life. And that's why the Quran says, we made you into many nations and tribes. And the word nation is not nation state that we know today. It's about Hindu nations, Buddhist nations, Christian nations, and many nations in our lives. But all these nations are beauties, different beauties that God created. But there's a key there, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you get to know one another. So the essence is about how to get to know one another. And get to know one another is not only about what is your name, but it's about appreciating what others can share with us. I have learned a lot from the Jewish people. I've learned a lot from the Christian people. I just give you one example. When I came to this country 23 years back, I live here in Astoria. And my neighbor is an Irish Catholic in faith. He's a senior citizen, 78 years. Now every morning he got out from his house, cleaning his driveway and our driveway too. We almost never encounter with non-Muslims in Indonesia, in my original country. So I was kind of suspicious what he wanted to do with me, in the beginning. But weeks, months, he never talked about his faith. But then I realized later on that this man basically taught me what does it mean to be a religious person. This is the religion. Religion is about how you share with other people around you. It's kindness with other people. Religion is not only in the house of worship. It's not only how you pray in the mosque or in churches or in synagogue and temples. It's about how you express yourself to other people around. That's what religion is supposed to be.
Wonderful. I will take a cue from the last line of Imam Sahib and how you express yourself. And I think all of us express with beauty and love and joy and a sense of affinity not only for each other here but for all of you, those whom we don't see but we can feel, because it is the energy of your presence also that has helped us sustain this conversation about interfaith for harmony in such a joyful manner. So I want to thank Guru Dileepji, TK Nakagaki ji, Reverend Susanna ji and Imam Sahib. And thanks to all of you inside tonight the Ashok Vyas. Next Tuesday we'll also have Interfaith for Understanding. Do join us.